Welcome to Spider-Verse Minute, the tri-weekly podcast where we watch Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse 1 minute at a time. I'm Caroline Slater.
And I'm her brother Sean.
And today we are talking about minute 46. It begins with Miles looking up where Alchemax is, and ends a minute later with Peter explaining step 4 of his plan.
And what did you title this minute?
I have titled this minute, Podcast Cover Image! So, the first thing I want to point out with this minute, because I think we talked very briefly about it last minute, but we talked about the alternate scene that Peter had about spreading the fries on the table, and how you can see it in the cutaway of this one. I noticed it. I noticed it this time, like, oh, that's what the thing that Sean was talking about!
Yeah, it was like, once they pointed it out, it's impossible not to see. Like, I noticed every time watching through, I'm like, oh, yep, there it is. Like, yep, those fries are there.
The next thing I noticed, so Miles looks up where Alchemax is, and we get to see quite a bit of the information about Alchemax.
Yeah, I also like how we see the fries, and Miles asks Peter if there's, like, anything else he wants to tell him, and Peter's like, nope. And Miles is just like, I think you're going to be a bad teacher. And, like, I think that is one of my favorite, like, deliveries in the whole movie, is just, like, how Miles just is like, this isn't going to help me at all. And I love, like, it's, Peter mumbles, like, look up where Alchemax is then, but that, like, mumble noise sound kind of is like a, yep, I'm gonna be a bad teacher. Like, it almost sounds like just like, yeah, okay, whatever, kid. And just, yeah, that little exchange is so good.
It is a great exchange. I also love the face the animators gave Miles when he said that line. I think, like, he just has this, like, I have made many mistakes in my life, but this one is by far the worst.
Yeah. He just, like, it's sort of a, like, he's angry, maybe not angry, like, he's annoyed at Peter for being a bad teacher and not really seeming to, like, grasp that.
Yeah.
and just a little sad, like, mixed with a little bit of sadness that, like, oh, he's not going to have the better teacher that his Peter would have been.
Yeah, it also seems a little bit like, you're a sad man.
Yeah.
A little judgy in there. I love it.
And then he looks up Alchemax.
Yeah, and we see a lot of information about Alchemax, and the first thing that actually caught my eye when I was looking at it was the address. But then the second thing, when I was taking notes, that I had to write down was its star rating. It has 3.5 stars. Which, like, brought me so much more amusement than I think it should have. I'm like, what? Who's rating this, first off? Second, why does it only have 3.5 stars? Third, what do those reviews say? Yeah. I have many questions. We also find out the address. 1 River Road, Hudson Valley, New York. 12463 USA.
Yeah.
But it's a River Road. Like, our home. Our old home.
Yeah.
Because neither of us live there anymore. But it's like, oh, River Road.
Yeah, I noticed that too as well. And then, you know, my first instinct was, well, let's look this place up. Except there's a couple issues with it. Mm-hmm. A, the 12463 is not a Hudson Valley zip code. That's a zip code for Palenville, 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 New York, which is about 23 miles further upriver from Hudson Valley. The actual Hudson Valley zip code is 12534. And also there's no River Road in Hudson Valley that I could find.
Well, how upsetting.
So
I guess they were trying to pick an address that didn't exist so no one would be, like, tempted to go there. Which makes sense.
They could have at least gotten the zip code right.
Yeah.
God.
The next thing I noticed was its hours, sort of. So, for anyone interested, Alchemix opens at 9 a.m. And this I actually did find interesting. It is before 9 a.m. during this moment because it says it's closed online.
Yeah, and that kind of tracks with what we were talking about earlier, how, it was nighttime and now it's really early in the morning. So it's sometime between probably like 5:30, 6 o'clock and 9 a.m.
Yeah.
Because the sun has started to rise, but it's not quite there yet.
Yeah. I just thought it was cool. I was like, oh, okay, so we have a bit more of a timeline now.
Yeah, and it's nice that the small things track.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the small things, the last thing we see about Alchemix is a phone number. I was really tempted to call it to see what would happen, but then I thought, better not. That sounds like a bad idea. Because, like certain shows or movies and stuff will put in like little Easter eggs like that. Like, and if you call the number, you get a special message. And I'm like, oh, that could be fun. I'm like, or this is like an actual number, whether they intended it to be or not. And I'm calling some random person.
The other thing here that's a little bit off as well, next to the zip code, is the area code for the number is 202, which is a Washington, D.C. number.
Mm-hmm.
And now that could make a bit of sense if the company's like headquarters is in D.C. and then this is just one of their like secondary labs. They might all route everything through the same number, and then depending on what like extension you call, it could go to the various buildings or not, and it was just something else they missed. But that one's a little bit less egregious than the the wrong zip code for the city. And then I love like how Miles is excited, like, oh hey, you can teach me how to swing on the way there, and just like Peter's laugh. And I love how, like, at first you think he's just laughing, like, okay, yeah, like, it's nice that you're excited about this. But then the hard cut to them just riding the bus is great.
I love the guy sleeping, like, just knocked out dead next to Miles.
Yeah.
Because, like, that's me when I'm on the bus. I am such a heavy sleeper when I'm on the bus. It's dangerous sometimes.
I do like how Peter's taking up two seats. Like,
it's
going to be very uncomfortable the way he's sitting there, because he's sitting right on the crack.
Yeah, like that.
And there's nothing comfortable about sitting like that.
There really isn't. Maybe it's comfortable for him, because he did eat 2 burgers.
That is true.
The last thing I want to point out in this little bus section, just because I thought it was so pretty, when the buses, we see the back of the bus driving away, and you get a really nice view of the trees, and they're in this beautiful fall reddish-orange color that I am a huge sucker for. And I just think there's just some stunning background work right there.
Yeah, I really like they captured the forest really well, of like what the forest in that area looks like, with the like, okay, it's fall color, like it's clearly the end of fall, beginning of winter, where not all the leaves have fallen yet, but they have already had their first snowfall.
Yeah,
I know I was recently reminiscing with our mom about having white Halloweens, and there was a couple years where like where there was snow on the ground while we were trick-or-treating, having to like deal with that stuff.
Always made us wear like long underwear underneath our costumes.
Yeah,
I think there was only 1 or 2 years where we didn't have to, and it was when I was older, and it was because they were actually pretty warm Halloweens when that happened, but it was very rare, and those were always fun.
I particularly remember one year where we had a couple days off of school at the end of October. This would have been like 2010, 2011-ish. But it was just, we had no power for like a day or two, and then we go into their getting ready montage of having to derobe their civilian clothing and get ready for the spider clothing. And I have to give props to Peter because he just takes off his shoes and is standing barefoot in the snow.
I was gonna point that out.
Brave thing to do.
I was gonna point that out. It's like that man just straight up kicks off his shoes with like no hesitation.
Yeah.
I also love his like sassy stance when he throws off his jacket.
Yeah.
There's just such confidence to it, and I'm like, I kind of love that. I also find it funny how he decides to keep on the sweatpants.
Well, I think that's because his legs are like all torn up and everything, so he's really just wearing like kind of shorts, maybe.
Yeah, but he's standing barefoot.
Maybe he needs more padding in the knees, and so he's like, well, the suit's not there anymore. Gotta add something.
Maybe
he doesn't want to show the fact that he's actually wearing like skate pads. He's too embarrassed about that, so he's like, I'll just keep the sweats on.
Or maybe he's just like me and he's like, oh, these sweats are so comfortable though.
Yeah.
So, during the sequence,
yes,
we need to talk about this like road trippy music that is getting played in the background.
Yeah.
I love it. And this song, which I might have to listen for a while, because it is very catchy. It is St. Elmo's Fire by John Parr, and it was released in 1984.
Yeah, this song works really well with just the way the scene feels. Like it's this, it feels like a montage song.
Yeah, like it feels like this. That's what it made me think road trippy, but I also thought like it's like the old 80s road trip. Like this is what you watch when you're seeing of shots of them like on the road, little shots of them on the road, getting to the location they need to, but like no real actual plots happening or emotional character development. So it's like, here's some fun shots we had to make the movie longer.
Yeah, and I think this is the only piece of like non-original music that they use in the movie that I can recall anyway.
Yeah, as far as I can tell.
And I love how it just stops abruptly when it shows the two of them, and Miles is wearing a cape. Where he got that cape from, I don't know.
Did
he bring it from home?
I love that it's yellow for some reason.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, I'm gonna bring a cape on this trip. What color capes do I have?
Yeah.
Like, is that the only cape he has?
Halloween this year, and so he's like, it's just laying around still.
Did he think yellow would be a good color for Spider-Man? Like, I have many questions about the cape decision.
Yeah.
But in the famous words of Edna Mode from The Incredibles, no capes! And in the hilarious words of Peter B. Parker, and that is a no on the cape.
It's disrespectful.
Yeah, it's like, that's disrespectful. Spider-Man doesn't wear a cape.
Yeah.
I love how he just rips it off. It
is pretty amazing he rips it off so easily. Like, it's a good thing, because maybe that'll, counter Edna's point that they're dangerous if Peter's able to rip that off as easily as he does.
I think Miles just didn't tie it properly. You also have to remember Edna's capes are usually sewn on.
Yeah. So maybe Miles can keep his cape.
Maybe. It still feels dangerous.
Yeah.
Especially for a swinging hero, I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah. And then we move on to the planning stage.
Yes. So Peter squats down. It's like, how would I get that if I were me? And he has the thinking pose on. And I love this little moment of Miles just kind of watching him and then, like, very childlike, kind of, like, mimicking him. And that's when we get it. The podcast cover image. When watching them, I forgot it was in this minute. Like, I knew it was going to be coming up at some point, but I forgot it was, like, at this point for a second. And so when it popped up, I'm like, it's our thing!
Yeah. I also love the little, like, Miles gives the little, like, glance down, glance up at the, like, he looks down at Peter's hands and looks back up. It's like, oh, I gotta do that. Okay. Way to mimic it, like it was just a nice little touch they added on.
Yeah, it's such a cute moment. I remember the first time I saw it, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's adorable. It was funny, but it was also adorable.
Yeah, they have a lot of good, like, big brother / mentor mentee moments, especially coming up.
Then we get into the actual planning.
Yeah, and I like, this is a new style of, like, explaining things that they bring in.
Mm-hmm.
Or, like, using comics and comic layout in a new way. And I really like this bit.
I love this. It's the same comic book motif that we've seen a few times and used in different ways. I love how they really kind of go full force with it in the planning here.
Yeah, although it does bother me a little bit that it's not in any logical reading order.
No, I get that.
Like, it's just bouncing, further into the page and then back a page. Like, it's not laid out in a. Like,
no,
you're skipping around in the story.
Like, that's not how this works. Fair enough.
Yeah, and it's just a basic. It's a pretty basic layout.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing too fancy going on with the page here, but it is still pretty cool. The way it goes through it.
Yeah. They also get some pretty good gags in here, and we'll talk a little bit more about them and a little bit in the next minute, because it does go into that. But two of my favorites pop up. One of them is step 3, where he's like, step 2, find the head scientist, and Miles' overvoice goes, it's the lady with the bike. I saw her in a video in class. I'm like, step 3. I reevaluate my personal biases. And I'm like, Peter.
I like that one too. I did have one question about that though, is how does Miles know that she's walking past with the bike?
I think they're both kind of seeing this visual.
Like, it's really funny because if it's just like, two people sitting in this squatting in the snow with Peter explaining, like, the fact that Miles can see what Peter's thinking is a little creepy.
No, didn't you know Miles can read minds?
Yeah.
It's one of his new spider powers they're introducing.
I did like the that line though of re-examining my personal biases, and I like the fact that they made the joke, but they didn't like it's not done in,
it doesn't hit you over the head.
Taste. Yeah, and it's not done in any derogatory fashion.
Like, oh gosh, no.
It's done with total sincerity.
Yeah, he's like, I gotta rethink how I look at stuff.
Yeah, but even on a meta level, it's done with sincerity, and not like, look at Peter needing to.
Oh yeah, no, they're not like making
do this dumb thing, like, or like, oh, look at stupid Peter thinking he's got to do this. It's just like, oh, yep, okay, that's something that you have to do every once in a while, and it was nice that they, it's a good joke and it's not done at the expense of anybody.
It's a great way of like, oh hey, I didn't realize I never even thought of this before. Well, now I gotta stop and think of some stuff. Okay, like there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah,
and I love it, and it is a very much of like a blink and you miss it kind of joke.
Yeah,
which I think is great too. I do kind of love those jokes. It makes the movie more fun when you rewatch it because you're like, hey, I missed that one.
Yeah, and just like quickly he goes through with that.
And goes right into step 4.
Yeah,
like it's just not a beat missed at all.
And in that panel, the scientist working on the computer in the foreground of the panel, that is supposed to be the like male form of Dr. Octopus.
Oh.
And so it was kind of a like mix between just like, here's a little Easter egg, as well as like, oh, maybe we can kind of throw off
audiences.
Yeah, like someone who might pick up on something like that. Like if you get it, it's just like throw off that Doc Ock is actually the lady. Again, having to re-examine your personal bias.
Yeah. Well, and I think I didn't notice that, so the next time I watch them, I'll have to keep an eye on that. But I think it's also kind of a clever thing of like, Peter sees him and is like, oh, that's the head scientist, because that's the head scientist in his world, in his universe. So it's like, obviously it's him, and here it smells like, oh, I gotta reevaluate that.
Yeah.
So, something fun. Like, there's a few different ways to analyze that.
And then step 4 where he's like, I'm going to hack the computer.
Yeah.
I love Miles's response. Like, it made the computer scientist in me so happy of... That's technically not hacking.
I wanted him to finish his sentence, but Peter's like...
My guess is it's kind of cracking,
Mm-hmm.
or just, typing.
The thing I love about that line is I love how Miles sort of pops up in a little circle and then gets poofed away. Pretty much. I'm like, this is great. It's very comedic.
Yeah, it was good fun, and also the way that Peter is typing on the keyboard, it's very hunt and peck, peck and typing.
Yeah.
It's very much like our dad / like old guy typing.
Oh yeah. Do you have anything else for this minute?
No, that's all I have for this minute. So the last thing that I'll bring up then is the alternate scene in this minute.
Alt scene.
Yes.
My favorite segment.
It replaces their bus ride.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens is Miles looks up where Alchemex is,
mm-hmm.
and then instead of cutting to the bus, it cuts to them in JFK Airport. And they get on a plane, and so they're sitting in their seats, and Miles starts asking him like Spider-Man questions, and Peter's like, "Hey, not now. It's too public of a place.
Mm-hmm.
Just like wait." And so like Miles goes back and just like sighs, and then it cuts to them in the bathroom, a very spacious bathroom, I must add, because both of them are able to fit in it comfortably. Peter gives him the spiel that he gives him about like making sure you powder your suit and do that, but then there's also extra stuff. So like one of the things is like, oh, finger strength is an appointment, pick a piano, and like bring aspirin, and like adds a couple extra things than just the 2 he gives us in the diner.
Finger strength is important. Pick up piano. That's
yeah, like learn how to play piano.
I know, it was just.
And then it shows them landing and like walking along a road, and they have to, they hitchhike and get picked up by a truck. And then once they're picked up by the truck, it cuts to the changing montage. And so it replaces that whole, just the bus scene with an airplane scene, which makes me think that there's 3 questions, I guess 2.5 questions I had with this. One, didn't Peter not have any money? So how did they pay for the airplane ticket? And 2, this was clearly done before they had like settled in Hudson Valley, I guess.
Yeah.
Because Hudson Valley is all of like 15 miles from where they are.
Yeah.
There's no airport that they would be taking. Like,
especially not at JFK.
So maybe this was like they were flying to DC to pick it up, and that's why the area code's in DC for the phone number, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But that was just the 2 things. I guess I didn't have a half a thing, but that was the 2 big things from that I brought up.
Yeah, like Miles could afford 2 tickets on a bus, but I don't think he could afford 2 plane tickets.
Yeah.
Like, those are expensive.
Yes, even just little puddle jumps, which they were not in a puddle jumper.
I kind of wish they kept the piano line. That one's funny. That was a fun alternate scene.
Yeah, by just taking the bus, it's a funnier gag.
Funnier gag, more to the point.
And it keeps everything closer together.
Yeah. I also feel like it makes more sense to have Malcolm X in the forest, like in New York.
Malcolm
like,
X.
people would expect it to be in DC, almost.
Yeah.
I like the idea of it being in, like, New York in the forest.
Was there anything else you wanted to bring up?
No, that's really it. That's all I have for this minute.
Well, then thank you for joining us for minute 46. Join us again on Wednesday, where we discuss minute 47 and see how their plan starts to come together.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.